Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Distance Learning Support Series. We'll get started in just a few minutes here. We are going to be making liberal use of the chat function today to everybody who's coming into the room. If you want to maybe introduce yourselves in the chat bar, it'd be nice to meet you and nice to see where you're coming from.
You guys read out some of those while we're waiting so I can.
Martinez, EGUSD, Morongo. We had somebody from Morongo Tuesday. San Jose, Ukiah, Fontana.
Great.
Elk Grove, GG, I'm not sure where GG is. Vacaville, Fairfield. Elk Grove, Montebello. Huntington Beach, San Diego. OV, Montebello. Excellent, great to see. We've got several people from Montebello. Morgan Hill. Delano, welcome Delano. San Gabriel, Half Moon Bay, Mount Diablo, all over the place. Petaluma, San Bruno, Ocean View, Huntington Beach. Nice. Ukiah. Clusters of people, so it sounds like people brought friends. Good, glad to hear it. Santa Cruz, Fontana again. PDX. Whittier, Paramount, Loyola, Marymount. All right, it's 3:30. I know folks are still trickling in, but we have a little bit of an introduction, so let me get started with that. Welcome again. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Guerrero. I am the Region 3 IPD staff person for CTA, so thank you all for being here. And with us today, we have Dr. Will Henson, who is a licensed clinical psychologist for over 20 years, working as a consultant in school districts. He's also a published author, speaker, and the co-founder of 321 Insight, which provides online professional development and training for educators. He's joined today by Ms. Aaliyah Jackson, president of 321 Insight. And today, they will be talking to you, go back one, about self-care and wellness for educators, building resiliency during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Thank you, sir. All right, go for one. And as most of you probably know, this is part of a month-long series. We actually kicked off a set of series in August with some getting ready for professional development and distance learning. This month, September, we're focusing on social and emotional learning, SEL. On Tuesday, we had a session on trauma-informed approaches to distance learning by Ms. Jackson and Dr. Henson. That will be available on the CTA webpage shortly if you missed that session or if you liked it and want to go back. Today, Thursday the 3rd, we've got educator wellness and self-care. And then nothing next week, but in 2 weeks, we'll have a two-part session on Tuesday and Thursday by Charlie Applestein talking about social emotional learning, a positive strength-based approach. And that's a 2-day session. So you all are already enrolled, so you're welcome to join us. We'd love to have you. And then starting on September 21st, we will be doing what are called Mindful Mondays, which are a smaller, shorter session once a month about building mindfulness knowledge, practice, and teaching skills among educators that you will then take back with your students. So glad to have you. Somebody in the chat has already asked about the captions. We have discovered that if you are using Google Slides, there is a closed caption button down at the bottom that you can turn on. You've got to be in Google Chrome though. It doesn't work from Firefox. I don't know about other browsers, but we've learned to use Google Chrome with Google Slides, and that has the captions option. So hopefully that's useful for some of you. You're welcome to do the chat. It's always kind of nice to see an active chat room. The presenters probably won't be able to see that though. If you have a question for them during the session, use the Q&A function. It's the little kind of double bubble down at the bottom of your screen, and feel free to drop some questions in there. Dr. Henson and Ms. Jackson are great about trying to answer those toward the end. Next slide, please, sir. And again, this is part of the CTA distance learning support through the IPD, the Instruction and Professional Development Department. We focus on helping teachers to develop rich content and effective pedagogy, to develop cultural engagement and social emotional learning, to develop equity, access, agency, and advocacy for themselves and their students, and for developing better systems of support and improvement. Okay, last one for me, please. And then just a quick commercial. Please remember, you've probably all heard about this, Proposition 15, the Schools and Communities First Act. This pandemic has shown us just how important schools are and how important school funding is. Be part of reclaiming $12 billion each year for California's schools and communities, including healthcare. By closing tax loopholes big corporations have exploited for more than 40 years. This is not a tax increase. What it is doing is ending the tax deferrals that corporations have enjoyed for over 40 years. And shouldn't Disney and Chevron pay the same taxes that you and I do? So please remember to vote yes on Proposition 15. One more slide. And it's all yours, sir.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about self-care and wellness for educators. And I want to say that when I first started consulting to school districts, I wasn't big on self-care and wellness. Like, I thought it was something that we should do at home and it shouldn't be part of what we do. But I've changed my tune on that over the last 20 years with all the stress that's come in. All the research is showing the teacher stress is up, and we're in a relational business, and this is super important for all of us in terms of how we show up for our students. So today's agenda, I want to talk about the current situation that we're under here in this country, all of the stressors that we're experiencing, and the idea of putting your mask on first. If you think about being on an airplane, if you're with a child, what do they tell you to do? Put your mask on first. Why? Because if you run out of oxygen, you're not going to be able to help that child. And it's kind of the same idea here with wellness, which is that if we show up and we're stressed out, we're not very effective. And that stress conveys to our kids pretty easily. Kids are really good at picking up on that. So we're gonna talk about dealing with the stress and uncertainty that we're all under in this time, and developing your self-care and wellness skills, just not only for yourself, but so that you can also teach them to others, your family, your friends, and your students. So let's start with a couple myths. I get a lot of resistance to self-care and wellness as I teach it. So I'm going to talk about some of the myths of self-care. First of all, it's something you should only worry about if you're stressed out. And that's not true. It's not that you get to the, it's you know, you don't put gas in your car when you're out of gas. You don't wait until you're out and then look for a gas station. You know, you keep your car maintained, you keep yourself maintained. Another myth is that self-care is for people with issues, and that if you need self-care, then it's just because you're not tough enough. And that is definitely not true. Taking care of yourself is something that everyone has to do, and it's for the toughest people as well as the rest of us. So another myth is that you should worry about it outside of your job. And I think I've already touched on that, is that it really, for us in particular, impacts how well we do our job. And big corporations have been onto this for years, looking at how their CEOs and their employees do better when they are personally well. So let's talk about the truth. The truth of the matter is, for self-care and wellness, that self-care is about tuning yourself so that you can provide optimal performance in your job and in your life, for your family and for your students. Self-care is about building resiliency. It's about getting tougher, building that mental and emotional toughness so that you can handle more. And I'm not telling you so that you can take on more. I'm saying that so that you can be intentional rather than reactive in the way you deal with the stressors that we all have to deal with ordinarily and during the pandemic. Okay. and that self-care and wellness impact how you present to other people and how you model and teach these skills to others. So our current situation here in the United States, we've got a COVID-19 pandemic. The end of it's uncertain. We don't know how long we're going to be under this, how long we're going to be wearing masks, how long we're going to be distance learning. There's a loss for all of us and our students of predictability, routine, and student skills. The things that we're used to doing, we're not used to doing anymore. We talked about this on Monday in terms of, our kids being in this routine. They've totally lost that. And one of the things that's really been stressful for people that I've worked with in the districts that I consult to is feeling uncertain about how to do our jobs. And that's one of the things that's contributed to a lot of stress in terms of what's being expected of you and what kind of outcomes are you responsible for. And then we've got the current social and political climate. We have so many things going on right now in the country. Talk a little bit about that. Also, we've got protests, we've got political divisions in California, you've got wildfires, we've got hurricanes, and the pandemic itself. So a lot going on right now. So everyone responds differently to stress. There's no right way or wrong way. Again, the idea is as we encounter stress, which is natural in life, what we want to have is the idea to respond to that stress in an intentional way. Stress in society tends to, and in people, tends to exacerbate underlying mental health issue. Anxiety and depression in particular get worse during a crisis, and that makes a lot of sense. And people tend to have adaptive and maladaptive coping mechanisms. And so what we want to do is move more towards the adaptive ones. In general, if you want to think about how you cope with a problem, maladaptive ones tend to be short-term fixes. They tend to make the feeling go away right now, but not address the underlying problem. So for example, if you think about somebody who under a lot of stress does a lot of screen time or drinks alcohol or something like that, or eats a lot, those are short-term fixes for how you feel right now, but they don't fix anything in the long term. Other problems help you, other responses to problems help you stop, relax, and make good decisions. So lots of stress going on. Common stressors right now in dealing with COVID-19 and all the other things that are going on are just dealing with that anxiety and uncertainty, being able to be like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, and being okay with that for right now. That's where we're all at. Fear of getting sick from COVID-19, also fear of, for our loved ones, and the people who are first responders or essential personnel or who are older, who are far away from us. Financial worries, a lot of people are out of work right now. We talked about that on Monday. There's a lot of financial uncertainty and job uncertainty. And so a lot of things to worry about. And then there's also stressful togetherness. A lot of us are home with our families and our kids, all of us trying to be online at once, all of us trying to do school and work at once. And that can be stressful also. And then the other thing that is stressful is isolation, is that some of us are alone, and isolation is also very difficult for people. So let's talk about groups at risk for COVID-19, stress, older people, people with health issues, children and adolescents. We talked on Tuesday about the fact that, adolescents may talk about their stress, while younger children may just simply act out in a way or be emotionally dysregulated. People who are at risk for getting COVID are under higher stress, and people with underlying mental health issues and substance abuse issues all tend to get worse during times of stress. Also, marginalized populations, people who experience discrimination and inequity are at greater risk, as are people who can't access the information in their home language. So what are the warning signs of stress in others? Changes in baseline behavior. Anytime you see the change in what's normal for somebody you want to pay attention to that, whether the change is good or bad, because something has happened and something is going on. So and that's going to be difficult for us now, not knowing our students as well as as we did when we did in March, when we knew them in March. We don't know what baseline behavior necessarily is for them. You want to look for increased substance use in people. As I mentioned, that's a short-term coping mechanism. Difficulty with sleep or concentration, increased irritability, as well as chronic news watching. And I just want to plug that for a second and say, one of the ways we might try to control our own stress is to like watch the news. The news tends to exaggerate things and hype things and show the worst things because, it's kind of exciting for people to watch and it gets them ratings. Don't watch the news over and over again. You're not going to find the information you need. Go to the CDC if you're looking for pandemic information. Go to your local agencies and look for things there. The local news has become, the national news has become very sensational, and especially for kids, it really isn't a good thing to watch. So let's talk about personal wellness and resiliency during this time, putting your own mask on first. As I mentioned, we're in a relational business. How effective we can be, the quality of our interactions with kids, the quality of our presence and our intentions relies on our ability to be intentional and show up for kids. And wellness is the foundation of that. Okay, if we're not there, if we're not resilient to stressors, we're not going to be able to help our kids through this time. So that's the stress, but I want to talk about the foundation, which is wellness. And really, if underneath it all, there's the big two: self-awareness and self-regulation are the bottom line foundation of wellness. And I asked you, if you were here Tuesday, I gave some homework, which was to think about how important is self-awareness really. Love for you to throw some of that in the chat for me to look at. But really, when it comes down to being well, what we want to do is be able to not be reactive to things. So self-awareness is this idea of, do I know what's going on inside of me right now? My emotions, my thoughts, but also my habits and my proclivities. Am I aware of that? And if you think about it, self-awareness, you got to be tough to be self-aware, because you got to be able to admit, you know what, I'm not very good at that, or this is not an area that I'm good at. You got to be realistic, okay? So do I know what's going on inside of me? And once I know what's going on inside of me, can I look at that and make choices? Or am I just reacting to what's going on inside of me to make it stop or go away? I don't want to think about it. And then there's self-regulation. How do I regulate my internal state, my attention, emotion, thought, physical sensations? If you can do those two things, you are so far ahead of the game, okay? So some of the other elements we're talking about today are relationships. What kind of relationships do you have with people? How important is that? Resiliency. And I'm going to define that for you. And also what you believe deep down inside. Okay. So self-awareness is a term that we don't get a lot of training on, and people sometimes aren't very comfortable with it. But people who aren't self-aware tend to interpret any critical feedback as failure or threat. It's very threatening to them to get any kind of feedback. People with real, true high self-esteem, they can take feedback. They can go, yeah, but you know what, maybe I'm not very good at that, or maybe I didn't do a very good job with that. And it doesn't threaten who they are. They don't have to defend against it, okay? So you want to think about that. Self-aware people have self-confidence, okay? They trust themselves even though they do fail sometimes, and then they're not perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Self-aware people know their own strengths and weaknesses. They can take feedback. One of the greatest quotes of all time that I think about self-awareness is by Sam Harris. And he says, if you're having a thought or feeling and you don't know you're having a thought or feeling, you become that thought or feeling. Now, I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you're sitting there and you're just, hanging out in your classroom or your house or your car, and all of a sudden you have this thought or feeling, and you start engaging with it. You get all spun up and worked up and all stressed out. Nothing's happening. You're just in your car, but you're thinking about all the bad things that could happen. So really being able to also decide, do I really want to engage with what just ran through my head, or do I just want to notice it and move on? I noticed that there's some mindful Mondays on your guys' calendar, and I would say that that's super important. There's a lot of research coming out about how mindfulness can help people cure habitual habits. So self-awareness is really important for educators. Self-awareness, if you want a definition, is the way people monitor and correctly understand their internal signals, such as their thoughts and emotions, and it allows them to understand their own patterns, habits, and overcome automatic behaviors so you have choice. Now, we talked about how many behaviors are automatic. 43% of all behaviors a human being exhibits during the day are automatic. We don't really think about them. So, and that can include bad habits too. So that's why it's, this mindfulness idea is very effective for those. They did a study recently to show people who wanted to quit smoking that the mindfulness was 5 times more effective than the treatment people were using. So a lot of good stuff there. So here's how to increase your self-awareness. If you're interested in going further in this, it won't hurt you. Be strong enough to be honest with yourself about what's going on in your head. Take a look at it. It will not hurt you. Don't be self-critical. If you've been a person who's been self-critical all your life, it is time to stop right now. It impedes your ability to examine truly your faults and your strengths, your decisions. It just triggers defensiveness. Like, you don't have to be that way. It doesn't help you. You can be realistic without beating yourself up. Okay. Third, replace self-criticism. If you're a self-critical person, what do I do with all that time I've got now that I'm not criticizing myself? Replace it with curiosity. Ask yourself, where did these thoughts and feelings come from? What do they do for me? What are some counterpoints to that? And really look into it. Ask a lot of questions about what's going on internally, and asking questions is important, even if you don't get the answers. I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you're curious about something, and then all of a sudden you start thinking about it, and you start seeing answers and ideas about it in all sorts of places. Just having that question out there will start to attract answers to you, because your mind will be looking for them. Okay, and ask someone you trust. This is the hardest one. Ask someone you trust to give you honest feedback on things. Okay, and that's the hardest to take because it's somebody else telling you that. But you can increase self-awareness if you want to just start light. Cut out the self-criticism and be curious. Now, what's going to happen to you as you start this whole process is you're going to go back and you're going to criticize yourself. Then you're going to, oh, darn it, I did it. And you're going to start to beat yourself up. Okay. And if you can catch yourself in that loop, oh my God, your life will change really quickly. And all of these behaviors are learned through repetition and practice. You're not going to be good at them right away. These are practice behaviors. You can start practicing that right now. Okay. And get really good at self-regulation, which is the next section we're going to talk about. Self-regulation being super important part of this whole thing. Okay. So as I mentioned, self-regulation is the way we deal with 4 things. That's interpreting what's going on inside of us. So thinking, our emotional responses, all the feelings we might have, the direction of our attention, and our physical reactions. And so, one of the things you might think about is how you interpret the physical sensations in your body. Am I experiencing hunger or anxiety? When I'm flooded with all this adrenaline because I'm all worked up, what is that? Am I really under threat, or am I just, is that just a feeling I'm having inside? Okay. So self-regulation is how you manage those 4 things. Thought, the quality of your thinking. And I'm going to go over some ideas about quality thinking in a minute. Especially how you talk to yourself, what you say to yourself. And we've talked a minute ago about beating yourself up. Okay. Thinking is the thing that you have the most control over. You have the choice in how you think. So you don't always have the choice in what you feel or what kind of physical reactions you have, but you do have the choice of how you think, what you say to yourself, and where you direct your attention. Okay. Emotion is how you handle your emotions, especially your tolerance for negative ones. Do you react and run for them, or are you able to tolerate them, lean into them a little bit? Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Attention, where are you directing your attention? Is it on the problems, the things you can't change? Is it on the things you can change? And physical sensations. How do you avoid the dysregulated states, being hungry, tired, dehydrated, etc.? Can you feel that in your body and go, okay, I know what that feeling is? It takes real practice, because what we're used to doing is trying to squash it with something. Okay, so let's talk about thought for a minute. Thoughts are the primary way you're going to self-regulate. Thoughts precede emotions. There's a psychologist I was listening to the other day. He said, I don't care how you feel, right? And what he meant was, how you feel is a direct result of what you just thought. Okay, if you're feeling bad, it's because of the way you're thinking about things. So thoughts precede emotion. You have control over how you think about things. You have the choice of which thoughts you want to entertain and which thoughts you want to say, I'm not gonna entertain that right now. One of the interventions I've used a lot in working with kids and with adults is, we're gonna table that worry till later. And even, maybe at 6 o'clock every day is my worry time. I'm gonna table that to my worry time. Now, what does that do for me? Well, at 6 o'clock, I'm probably not gonna want to stop and worry about something. So I can just put it on a list or table it and go, you know what, we'll deal with that later. And most of the time, the kids I'm working with, or me, or anybody else, at 6 o'clock, they don't want to deal with it, right? They just stop themselves from reacting to it. And that's big, okay? So you have control over which thoughts you entertain them and when and how. How you talk to yourself is critical. Decreasing that critical self-talk and being curious. Okay, so let's talk about regulating thought. Now, we're going to talk for a minute about errors people make when they think. And as a mechanism for this, a lot of these thoughts that people have are what we call automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs. People use that acronym. And they're automatic thoughts and assumptions and beliefs that are reflexive. They don't go through any scrutiny. So they're cognitive shortcuts and they're defensive in nature. So think about the kid and think about how this might apply to things in your life, who you put the math sheet down in front of him and she goes, I'm bad at math. Now, what does that do? Okay, first of all, it makes her not want to try. Second of all, it's defensive. She's already preparing you to not expect anything and preparing herself not to expect anything and frankly not to try. So it's it's an automatic thought, and it may not be true, or it may be less true than she thinks it is. So be aware of your own. What do you say you're not any good at, or you can't do, or that's bad about you, or that think about those things for a second. We all have them. Now, you got to be aware of what these things are in order for you to stop using them. And if you really want to get good at it, if you really want to get good at not using errors and defensive mechanisms, the best way to do that is to track it. Just catch yourself doing it. Take a little piece of paper, and every time you catch yourself beating yourself up or doing something you don't want to do, just make a check mark. Now what does that do for you? That increases your awareness of what's going on, and it starts to give you that control. Again, these behaviors that we're talking about today, they're all learned through repetition and practice. None of them are learned through just cognitively me telling you and you're like, okay, I'm changing. Okay, they're all repetitively learned behaviors. That's how our limbic system, our emotional system, learns. I don't know if you've ever had I've read a ton of like self-help books and stuff like that. I don't know if you heard the thing was, I read it and nothing happened. Well, that's because of this. That's because you got to practice it. Okay, so I'm giving you ways to practice. If you want to go further, there are some blog posts I wrote a while ago that have some practice things in it. There's some things on the 321 Insight website that give you a 9-week course to go through to practice this kind of stuff. Okay, so let's talk about now. We're not in school anymore. We don't have the staff room box of donuts, but I made this presentation because at least in a lot of the schools that I consult in regularly, there's always a giant box of donuts in the staff room, and I do not want to eat them all. Okay, now maybe you're at home and maybe you got the donuts there or other good things that maybe you don't want to snack on all day. So I'm going to show you how cognitive errors occur within the context of you're standing in front of that box of donuts. I know you know what I mean, and you don't want to eat them all. So one cognitive error you can do is blaming. You know what? It's your fault that I ate the donut. It's your fault I ate 3 donuts. You stressed me out. Now, who ate the donuts? You did, right? But you can blame somebody else. Takes the onus off you. Also takes away your power. So here's another cognitive error: denial or minimizing. I didn't eat the donut. What donut? It was a little donut. You know, you're denial or minimizing something. Okay. Another one is catastrophizing. Oh man, I ate that one donut. Now I'm gonna have to eat the whole box because my diet, I ruined it. Now, you know, and now they're gonna fire me for eating all the donuts, and I'm gonna have to, you know, you can go on and on with catastrophizing. So that's making things worse. Oh, there's a pink one. Okay, all or nothing. If I eat even one bite of this donut, I'm just gonna have to eat the whole box because my diet's broken. Okay, rationalization. You know, the reason I ate that donut is because it's Wednesday, and we all know that Wednesdays are stressful, and therefore I had to eat a donut, right? Okay, rationalization. And then results-oriented thinking. That's when you base your decisions on past outcomes. Last week I could not resist, therefore this week I can't resist, okay? Instead of decision-oriented thinking, which is, what would be a good decision for me right now, okay? Your Mindful Mondays that they got planned for you will help you with this, this whole donut thing. Really good stuff. Okay, so let's talk about regulating emotion. Emotions are signposts. They are reactive and automatic. Okay, you can't necessarily control them, as I mentioned, and feelings are not facts. Just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean that it's true. It just means that you feel that way. You might want to be curious about why you feel that way. Emotions are a result of thoughts, often automatic ones, and that don't go through scrutiny. And it's the thought process that regulates that emotional response. So also watch for the autonomic arousal that comes with a feeling. So oftentimes that feeling, if I'm feeling scared or anxious, I get some adrenaline. If I'm feeling sad or depressed because of that feeling, I get cortisol or other things that make me feel bad and slow down. Okay, so watch for what physically is happening inside, and don't be afraid of your emotions. So if you want to practice now getting better at tolerating emotions that are uncomfortable with you, just lean into them. Just, hey, I've got some anxiety. I'm just going to sit here and feel it. If you chase your emotions a little bit or just tolerate them instead of letting them chase you while you run from them and try and find a way to distract yourself, they start to lessen because their power lessens. So practice tolerating an emotion, even if you want to start, again, this is a practice thing, 5 seconds. Hey, I'm feeling really anxious. You know what I want to do? I want to pick up my cell phone or eat 5 donuts or, you know, do whatever. But I'm just going to sit here and feel it for 5 seconds. And the next time I'm going to do it for 6 seconds. And the next time I'm going to ask a question about it to myself and maybe try and answer that before I do something else. So you get better and better. You build your tolerance for experiencing emotions that are difficult for you. Okay. Practice your tolerating experience. And let's talk about attention. You can be selective in what you attend to, both in your everyday environment and also, you know, when you're thinking about a problem. Are you focused on solutions or are you focused on the problems? Humans have an innate bias towards the negative. I know that sounds like a real bummer, but it was a survival thing back in the day when we were running around, you know. we were always looking for the predator. We were always looking for the weather change and things that could harm us, right? So there's this innate bias to look to the negative. That doesn't always serve us. And so since we're not needing to survive most of the time anyway, we have to try and overcome that fact and look at not be rosy, you know, but what are possibilities rather than just threats. In general, I would say, you know, if you want to get better at this, pay attention to what you want more of. Okay, pay attention to the good things that are happening to you. Be grateful for the good things that are happening to you, and really take notice of them. Now, I'm not telling you this to take the bad things and say, "Oh, this horrible thing happened to me." Maybe there's, you know, maybe there's some good in it, but there is something to that as we talk about resiliency and optimism in a minute. But what happened today that was great? What happened today that I should be grateful for? There's a lot of research to show that really does change your mindset and really does combat things like depression, and just paying attention to what is good, as well as always cycling instead of always cycling through what's negative. Okay. Optimism is the belief that good things will happen because of your action. It's not, I'm going to go sit in the closet in the dark, and when I come out, you know, I'll be, you know, 10 pounds lighter, or my stress will be gone, or I'll have the money that I want. You know, it's about believing that your actions will lead to results, not just because you think it. So what I always say is there's no such thing as magical thinking, but thinking is magic. Now, let's talk about your physical body for a minute. That is the thing underneath your head that you drag around. You are not just a thinking head. You have an entire system. As a matter of fact, a good number of the neurons in your body are located in your stomach and your gut instead of your head. It's a whole system. Taking care of your body is important for regulating your thought, emotion, and attention. So drink water. Now, I've seen a lot of different things on how much exactly, from 2 liters to 40 ounces to 8 glasses. Just drink some water, okay? And drink a bunch of it. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna drink some right in a second, because hydration is one of the things that'll give you a headache and it'll impede your ability to think, okay? Now, get some sleep, 7 to 8 hours per night minimum. Teenagers need more. Really, older people tend to get less, but you should really strive for that 7 to 8 hour mark. That's pretty clear in the research. Cut down on caffeine, sugar, tobacco. Think about all these things as an alcohol too, as short-term regulators. You know, you're not feeling good, so guess what? I pound some coffee. I eat a candy bar. They're very much short-term regulators. I'm not saying not to eat them. I'm just saying cut down on them. And exercise when you can. Get up, walk, move around, especially now when we're sitting in front of Zoom all day and you know, we're not walking down the hall. We're not doing our normal stuff. Take some time when you can to get up, move around, and get your body moving. Okay, and avoid hunger and fatigue as best you can. Eat, stay, keep your physical body as something that you're maintaining regulation into. Okay, let's talk about relationships. Recent study coming out of Harvard showed that the #1 most important modifiable factor in depression was your social connectivity. What have we lost during the pandemic? But that social connectedness, we are built to connect to people. That is our #1 function. And so relationships are critical for our well-being. We build and maintain relationships by the quality, not the quantity of our presence. So what do I mean by that? Well, you know, people always say, oh, I don't have time to build a relationship with 30 kids. I don't have time to get to know everybody. But when you're with that person for whatever time it is, be fully present. Be there. Be attentive. Don't be multitasking and looking at your phone and talking and answering emails. Like when you're with somebody, even if it's on Zoom, be fully present. Okay. So that quality of interaction is so much more important than the quantity of our interaction. Think about somebody who is really good friend, somebody who you really, you know, trust a lot. Somebody maybe who was a mentor for you or a teacher. It might not be somebody you know well, but think about how you feel when you're with them. You feel that quality, don't you? Okay, so that quality of interaction. Oh, and be intentional about your relationships with others. How do you show up, especially now? We've got to take that extra time to be relational, even if it's on camera, because people need it more than ever. Okay, resiliency. We're going to call this toughness. Okay, people, that is a bad word because what people think about when we talk about toughness is usually I'm going to get my way because I'm the toughest person, and you're not going to get your way. That's not what resiliency is. Okay, resiliency is a learned behavior. It is a practice. It is a habit. It is not something that you are good at naturally, necessarily. It is a learned behavior. It involves the quality of your thinking, the focus of your attention, and it is strengthened through relationships. It's not about picking yourself up by your bootstraps and doing everything yourself. And it really, to be tough, you need people behind you. And resilient people do three things. Here's what they do. This is what the research shows. Okay, first is they accept the reality of what's happening to them. Now, this is why we talked about self-awareness, self-regulation first, because in order to accept the reality of what's happening to you, you have to be able to look at it. This is what's happening. This is the reality right now. Now, you want to strive to be realistic, not just think about everything bad, but what is really happening. Okay. They make meaning out of their circumstances. What does it mean for this class right now that we're online for maybe the whole year? Is that a chance to do what? Strengthen our relationships, deepen our relationships, for me to come through for kids? What does that mean? What meaning does it have, and what meaning and purpose can I make out of it? And the third thing people do who are excellent at, who are resilient, is they are improvisers. They may not get or have what they want, but man, they go out and do the best they can with what they have. And that's going to be all of us this year, is we're all going to be improvising during distance learning. Now, another thing that's important is belief. And belief are those automatic, unspoken assumptions that we all have, and they come from experience. And they do contribute a lot to those automatic thoughts of what you're good at, what you're not good at, what's good about you and bad about you. Self-criticism and limiting beliefs keep people trying to shield themselves from those negative feelings instead of growing and achieving and connecting. And so really, we got to get rid of those limiting beliefs. Many of those were formed when we were in middle school, okay? Because we needed to be like, hey, I'm not very good at this, so I better not try that. Let them go. You don't need those anymore. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try. To get better at things, you got to recognize and challenge those limiting beliefs and be okay with being a little uncomfortable. Be okay with failure. There's nothing wrong with it. But when we let our beliefs limit what we do, how we connect to people, how we form relationships, how we grow, whether we are living the way we want to or not, we're selling ourselves short. Okay. And if you want to get better at this, question those old beliefs. Michael Gervais, sports psychologist for Seattle Seahawks, has a great quote. He says, "It's a misnomer that you have to do more to be more. The truth is you have to be more to do more." And that is really true today in terms of, I'll personally say that, before I discovered a lot of this stuff, I just was trying to achieve, and I would get to a plateau. And I think that if you're there, going back to these basic things of self-awareness, self-regulation, resiliency, belief is the ladder to get from where you are now to where you want to be. So think about focusing on those core skills. Want to talk a little about optimism and motivation. Okay, as part of this, people with high levels of optimism share certain traits, okay, including be able to motivate themselves and find ways to accomplish goals and work through tough spots. And we talked about this idea of motivation is that something good will happen because of your effort, not that it will just happen, okay? People's belief in their abilities, it turns out, research has shown this over and over, have a profound effect on those abilities. If you believe you're good at something, you're going to keep trying. You're going to go around failure. You're not going to give up. Optimistic people see failure as something that can be corrected and fixed by their own action, while pessimistic people see it as outside of their control and often internal to them. Okay. Seligman, 1987 study, found that salesmen who scored high in measures of optimism sold 37% more stuff in their first 2 years and quit at half the rate of pessimists. Now, we're not selling stuff, we're not salesmen, but we are selling things. What are we selling? We're selling ourselves. We're selling the idea that education is important. We're selling the idea that the student is important. We're selling all this stuff. And to get kids to buy it, we got to believe in it. Okay, so we'll talk one more minute here about what we call flow science, and this is peak performance stuff. Okay, so as we get a, you know, I don't want to just leave you with the idea of, you know, getting out of a hole of stress. I want to talk about how humans achieve optimal performance, whatever that means for you. Okay, I can't pronounce this guy's name, but his first name is Michael. Describes a state of high performance. Done a lot of research in this. He wrote a book called Flow States. Good book. It is the ultimate harvesting of emotions in service of performance, and it involves full engagement of the task at hand. Now, entering this flow state, and a lot of people talk about this, athletes, peak performers, business people, that being in what they call the zone requires one of two. Well, you can get there in one of two ways. You either really dial in, you have this sharp attendance to task at hand in a highly concentrated state. And once that focus takes hold, it takes on a life of its own, where you forget about yourself and your own performance, and you're just doing whatever task that is. Now, maybe you guys have something, throw it in the chat, of something that gets you into that state. Some people it's sports or running. Some people it's crafting. Some people it's, you know, whatever it is for you. Throw it in the chat. Love to see it. To where things are effortless. Okay, so the other way to get into flow state is when the demands are high enough that your skill level at something and the demand is evenly matched. You got to concentrate. If you look at this table over here where we see flow, you can see that it's this intersection of arousal, like how much arousal you have, and control. So it's at the edge of your skill level. When things get easy, you start to relax, maybe get bored, going clockwise, going counterclockwise. When things get too hard, you start to get anxious. Okay, so it's right at where your skill level is. So challenge yourself to get right up to that skill level, right up to that place where your skill meets the challenge. And rising to a challenge is always a great way to practice resilience. Okay. This can be a mental or physical task. It doesn't have to be that you're, you know, playing a sport. It can be a challenging conversation. So instead of worrying about the confines of problems of this year, challenge yourself to rise to the occasion, to be resilient, and to get into that state where you're at your best performance. Push the edge. See what you can do. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. So to wrap it up, now, this is a good time also to throw questions into the chat so that we can answer them. I want to say that as you do, if I don't get to all the questions that come through the chat, I will put them all in our blog on 321 Insights so that you can see them. And I try to answer all of them. If some of them are grouped together, I might, you know, group a couple of them together. But main points for today for you guys: be intentional. Move away from being reactive and self-protective. Let go of those limiting beliefs and self-criticism. It impedes your performance. You don't need it. It doesn't do anything for you. Second, be disciplined. Don't let yourself think junk thoughts, okay, or take junk actions. Be disciplined. Be present. Be in the moment. This enhances your performance and your relationships, okay? Being fully present is part of the magic of life, and it's super important now. Have quality relationships. The quality of your presence and good intentions build strong bonds with others, and they're essential in tough times. And be tough. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Learn to regulate yourself. Learn to practice resiliency. And all the stuff we talked about today is stuff that you can practice and you'll get better at. You won't be good at it when you start, but the more you practice, the better you'll get, and you'll see big results. Okay, here's the way to get a hold of me. Thanks, everybody. And I will turn it back over to Leah.
Wonderful, thank you. Just give me 1 second, sorry. I know we're all used to the Zoom pause here. Okay. Ryan, is that working on your end?
I hear you fine, but the slides are not up. Do you want
Okay.
me to put them up on my end?
I'll try it again. Let's see.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yep. Well, now it's going
Great.
in.
There you go.
Thank you for your
Boom,
patience,
everybody.
everyone. Sorry. My name is Aaliyah Jackson, and I work with Dr. Henson at 321 Insight. This will be a good opportunity for you to put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll have a few minutes to answer them. If you enjoyed what you saw today or on Tuesday from Dr. Henson, we just wanted you to know that there is a lot more where that came from in our online professional development series. So we have 2 series. One is focused on trauma-informed schools. This includes an entire unit on self-care and wellness, exercise series, practice mindset tools, all sorts of things you can do to really build that and take it back to all of the staff on your campuses in your district. There's brief videos that include discussion guides, ways to extend the conversation and really apply it to the context of the students that you're working with and the colleagues you work with as well. It's designed to fit all PD models, so lots of districts are doing this right now on Zoom or Google Meets. They're doing professional development via distance learning as well. We have specific content to address the impact of COVID-19 and what's happening now. And then we have information focused on how do you do all of these things that we're talking about via distance learning? How do you teach social emotional skills to students? How do you build relationships and resiliency in students via distance or remote learning? We also have an online training series for paraeducators, so brief videos to learn how to be more effective with students, again, including supporting them online. And we have free demo accounts available. So if you're interested, you can email info@321insight.com and we can set you up with an account that you can preview and see the materials for yourself. We just released a brand new infographic. If you didn't have a chance, or if you weren't with us on Tuesday, you didn't have a chance to download it yet, here is the URL to do so. It is focused on applying the principles of trauma-informed practices to both in-person as well as distance learning. There's a lot of really great tips and best practices that you can use just directly from this graphic. So please do fill out the form and download that. With that, thanks for your attention through that, and we're going to move to the questions and answers. It looks like a couple of people have asked questions, so if there's still time to ask a few more. The first is, what are some professional ways to say no in supporting my colleagues as I feel overwhelmed helping them with tech while I manage my own classes?
You know, it's so okay to say no, but how you say it is so important. You know, a lot of people are so used to saying yes that when they, you know, they say yes, 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 and then they feel they've got to, they don't say no until they're already mad, right? So, you know, it comes out wrong. So, you know, if you just say, you know what, hey, I'm so busy right now, I can't, you know, but, you know, let me direct you to somebody else. Just that calm energy is so much more important than anything else. And, you know, you got to feel that it's within your right. If you feel defensive, if you feel angry about it, that's going to come through, but you can totally say no and it's okay. And you need to be okay with that.
Great, thank you. The next one is, well, there's one about the poster download, and if you requested it and didn't get it, it's probably in your spam or got quarantined by your district filter. Send an email to info@321insight.com. I'll put that up in the chat again, and I'll email it to you directly. So sorry about that. The next question is about someone's working on regulating their thoughts and attention. As in addition to the crazy stressors of online teaching, they have a huge personal stressor. I've been intentional in what I give my attention to, but this seems almost like I'm pushing off dealing with emotions. At what point does that become unhealthy?
So you got a huge personal stressor going on, a lot of big stressors now. You know, I think you're asking the right question, which is at what point does it become unhealthy? And that's not an answer that, you know, that's going to be different for everybody. But I think if you're paying attention to how you're taking care of yourself, how you're taking care of others, and really focusing on, you know, that the answer is something you can come across yourself. But usually when people aren't taking care of themselves, they're being super reactive, they're taking on too much, they're using, you know, alcohol or drugs or something like that. I'm sure that's not you, but you know, that you have to look at what's going on, and I think you're looking at it, which I like.
Great. There's still time to submit more questions. Those were the ones that were already submitted in the Q&A. Dr. Henson, you touched on this a little bit in the first response, but I'll ask a slightly different angle, which is, what do I do if the other people I'm working with are stressed themselves? How do I help support my colleagues during this time?
Well, you know, as we talked a little bit about last time, you know, so much of it is the quality of your presence, just being a calm person there. You know, you can't fix everybody's stress and problems. If you could, you would. But you can be that person who's solid, who listens, who cares. Just having one of those people in a group of people has a huge mitigating effect on stress. So, you know, you can be one of those people who shows up and people are glad to see, and you're glad to see everybody else. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You know what those people are like in your building and in your environment. So, being calm and warm and friendly and present is probably the most important thing.
Great. Looks like another question just came in. Okay, this was wondering if we work with Swing Education, and we do not currently, but if that's something we should look into, please send us a note and we will happily connect and see if it's a good partner.
Yeah.
And Brian, I lost the chat. So would you be able to type in info@321insight again for me?
Spell it again.
Well, I can just put it up there too. Yeah, I lost the chat for some reason. I'm not sure where it went, but okay. Any other questions? We know that everybody is navigating this kind of as we go, and I really appreciate being together and talking about this important topic. Any final words for you, Dr. Henson or Brian?
Everybody, this is a stressful time, recognize that and be kind to yourself, please.
Very good. Dr. Henson, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Both
Brian.
were fantastic. A couple people asked, they are taped, and we'll put them up on the CTA website. The link went by a moment ago, and we'll make it available again. But thank you very much, Dr. Henson. Aaliyah Jackson, thank you very much for working on this and putting this together with us. It has been a pleasure having you two be part of our SEL September series. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Hopefully you all will join us again, not next week, but the following week. We've got 2 more sessions, different presenters, but equally as good and as powerful as Dr. Henson has been. And together we will get through this. This is hard. This is something none of us have ever had to deal with before on this scale. And so a lot of people are stressed in a lot of ways, and that's okay. That's a legitimate response to this, but hopefully you got some strategies today to help equalize yourself and regulate your own feelings, and some strategies that you can use to apply with your students and help them through this. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
And I just put up the link again for the presentation if you didn't get that.
Cool. Okay.
Adam, are you still on, Adam? No. Okay, I'll have to find the link for the CTA webpage at a different point. But all right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. If more questions come in, we can answer them on the blog or.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So, but again, I really appreciate it. And we've got a few people in the audience still, but that's fine. You guys were great to work with. I so appreciate you guys just kind of coming to the rescue and helping us out with this, and
Sure thing.
helping the entire state of California. So
Anytime.
Gosh, yeah.
if we help Oregon, let us know.
Thank you. Yeah, Brian, it was a pleasure too, and definitely keep us in mind as you move forward, and let us know how things go. You guys are really kind of in the lead here in terms of the fully distant learning, so we're learning from you too.
Working on it. Yeah, and same. If there's anything we can ever do to help, let us know, and we'd be happy to, Zoom up to Oregon.
Yeah. That's great. I will definitely be in touch.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian, for everything.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.